Hi everyone, Kyriacos Eliades, residential properties, and we spoke yesterday about it. And maybe you've decided that you're not going to buy at this point in time to live in, because when you live in a property, it doesn't make money for you, and you're deciding that you're going to invest in a property that makes money for you. Or maybe you do have properties, maybe you've inherited properties, maybe you live in another city and you own properties elsewhere. These are just tips to help you earn better revenues. I'll tell you some stories that happened to me. Only if somebody was giving me advice, I would have not have had to have hit my head so hard as I did, and had to have lose so much sleepless nights, and ended up paying so much school fees. So these are just some things that have happened to me. And I've had properties where I rent to one person only to find that there are 10 people living in a property. So you can imagine, you arrive there thinking to find one person only to find 10. What a nightmare that is to get everybody out of that property. So I've had people die. Then eventually you need to follow the correct procedures, talk with the families. Eventually the stuff needs to get removed. That takes time. Now, these are all things that I am telling you because if you do not have provisions, you have to pay those bonds. You're going to have to service your commitment to the banks. You will have to service your commitments to, if it's body corporates, to municipalities and all that kind of stuff. So I am telling you this so that you can prepare yourself. Remember, none of us can predict the future, but as long as we can plan, we won't be surprised about what comes our way. So I've had people that I arrive at my property to find that the property is totally stripped. Bare, just the walls and the roof there. I mean, every single light switch, plugs, you name it, taps, all gone, copper, wires, everything gone, bare. I've had before where people lose their jobs, and I have to deal with that as well. They just don't have the money to pay. I've dealt with divorces. So there have been so many of these scenarios. So why I'm telling you all these things? Because these things do happen. These are all realities of life. Nobody can actually predict the future, and nobody's going to find somebody that's going to never have problems, because there are always problems along the way. So my advice to you is as follows. Once again, talking what has happened to me, and I want to help you so that you don't have to have sleepless nights, that you can sleep, earn money, and at the end of the day, meet your commitments and your obligations. So if you're renting out your property, make sure, if it's a house, that you insist on a garden service, insist on a pool service. If they are saying that they will do it themselves, insist that it's written in the contract, the conditions and what it needs to be done. Insist that you do inspections at least every 3 months on your property. If you're living out of town, that the agency does spot checks every 3 months. The property needs to be looked at. Have a look at your property, that people are not bypassing the electricities, not to be paying the correct money to the electricities, or bypassing the water, because it does affect you in a number of things. The first thing is, if you get caught, you're going to get a very big fine, and the fine ends up at you as the owner of the property, not the person who's renting out. And I've had it before where the people dispute and say, but that didn't happen. I'm not the one who did that. It must have been the previous person. And believe me, it's a nightmare, because you as the owner, you get the fine, you have to pay. So be careful for those type of things. Make sure that it is an electrician that is registered to be working on electricity. I know of people that their properties have burnt down, and for them not getting a qualified electrician, it's ended up in claims not getting paid out, and putting them in a massive financial difficulty. So be careful for that. Insist that that you or the estate agent calls out a qualified electrician. Make sure you see the invoices. Make sure you always get an invoice for everything, so that you know that it is legit, that you're not being taken for a ride. So have a look at those type of things. Have a look that your property is being maintained, the gutters are cleaned and all that, because in your insurance, it does state that if your properties are not actually maintained, that they can actually not pay you out. So be careful for that. insurance companies as well. If your property's been standing, I think if I'm not mistaken, more than 30 days and it's vacant, and eventually it gets broken into and they strip the property, that the insurance can actually dispute the claim and not pay you out. That can also financially ruin you because you have commitments with that money that you're expecting to earn. And once again, if the damage is exceeding to thousands and thousands of rand, it can financially hurt you or ruin you. And I've seen people having to sell their properties due to the condition of what their properties have been left as. I mean, so watch out for those type of things. If your property is standing vacant for more than a month, make sure you notify your insurance company. There are certain things, if I'm not mistaken, there are certain conditions. You can put in an alarm system and that. But once again, I don't know what your insurance says. You need to confirm that with your insurance company, but watch out for those type of things. I have seen people be financially ruined with their buildings being stripped and they still have to pay rates, taxes, commitments to the banks, and they fall into big trouble. So watch out for those type of things. Negotiate with the estate agents as well, and with yourself if you're doing it, that there are penalties for people that pay late, because they seem to make the money, you never make the money, and you end up getting your money at the end of the day a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks even later, but other parties have made money. So if you are getting your money a bit late, make sure that you are benefiting out of that as well. So negotiate those type of things. Negotiate that you have a look at your properties. Make sure that your gardens and your properties are maintained. Take a lot of photos of what the condition of your property is, and at the end of the day, if somebody else is doing the inspections, make sure that they do send you photos. Compare that. Make sure when your property is again vacant that it is left in the same condition that you had given it. You will find some odds and ends, but that is your proof at the end of the day. Make sure that your contracts are correct, because the laws change constantly. And if people default and your contract is not correct, you will have tough time in evicting the people or trying to claim against damages against them. So make sure that your contracts are in order. Make sure that the contracts are filled in correctly. Make sure that the person is able to afford the property, that you haven't just given it to somebody who is blacklisted and somebody who has no way of actually affording to pay that property. So at the end of the day, you're going to end up being into trouble. So if you are renting a property yourself, pay an attorney, pay somebody to do the credit checks that need to be done so that you can be sure that all the documentations are correct and your contracts are correct. Things have changed these days, so your paperwork needs to be correct. The other thing is, remember at the end of the day that if you are renting, specify how many people you're allowing to live in your property. I've seen it too many times. You're renting it to 2-3 people. Eventually you end up finding 10-15 people living in your property. Your property is destroyed. It is a nightmare. Make sure that you don't leave money outstanding for too long. I hear it all the time of people that are thousands of rands outstanding, and that can also financially hurt you. So look out for those things. Watch out for your pocket, that it's not hurt. At the end of the day, do what's good for you, and if you do things correctly, it is a win-win for all parties. There are many other things, and I will gladly share them as we go along in that, but watch out for those type of things. Make sure that your paperworks are done correctly. Make sure your properties are in order. Make sure that you have the right tenants and people do respect your property, because at the end of the day, it can financially ruin you if you don't get paid. And always remember to have at least 2-3 months worth of income to keep that property afloat if you have to. Thank you, everybody. Kyriacos, Eliades. It's always a pleasure to be doing this. Please subscribe to us, like us, follow us, and we will continue to set out and help you wherever we possibly can. Thank you once again. Kyriacos, Eliades.